Hi, third grade friends. Today we're going to be doing our next math lesson. This math lesson is for Tuesday, May 5th. This is lesson 12.5 in our Go Math grade 3 books. So this is 12.5, Classify Quadrilaterals. Okay. Just like usual, you're going to need a piece of paper and a pencil. If you do not have those things, then you need to pause this video so you can go get them. All right. So we're going to start this lesson 12.5, Classify Quadrilaterals. A couple things we need to think of. Our last lesson we talked about quadrilaterals. Here's a picture in case you forgot. Quadrilaterals have 4 sides and 4 angles. We talked about sometimes people call a four-wheeler a quad. Okay, four-wheeler or quad. Quad reminds us that we're talking about 4. So we've been talking about all types of polygons and what they are called. We talked about triangles have 3 sides and 3 angles. Well, today we're just talking about the different shapes that are types of quadrilaterals. Classify means we're telling what type it is. So all these shapes in this picture are quadrilaterals, but they have different names. So we're going to talk about those names today and why they have those names. One of the things we're going to have to remember from before is parallel lines. Parallel lines are very important when we're deciding what type of quadrilateral it is. I'm going to hold this up to remind us. Parallel lines never cross or touch. They are always the same distance apart, and they don't form angles because they're opposite from each other. Okay? Lots of quadrilaterals have sets of parallel sides. So if I look here, this is a set of parallel sides. This is a set of parallel sides. We need 2 to make a set. Okay. Quadrilaterals have 4 sides. So if they have 2 sets, that means 2 sides are parallel and the other 2 are parallel. That would be 2 sets. Okay. So we're going to start talking about these. We're going to go over 4 different kinds of quadrilaterals today. These first 2, you definitely know. You know what these shapes are. You just might not know all the special things about them. The first one we're going to talk about is what lots of us think of when we think of a 4-sided shape, a square. Okay? When I show this picture of a square, again, I'm not a computer, so my square is not a perfect square, but you can tell that that's what I was trying to make. Squares, we know, if you know any of these, it's probably that all 4 sides of the square have to be equal length. That's our second bullet point here. All the sides have to be the same length for it to be a square. It also has to have 4 right angles. So when I take this square, every corner of this square would fit a little square inside. Remember, right angles mean we fit a little square in the corners. And it also has 2 sets of parallel sides. So let me see if I can do this. These 2 are parallel, and these 2 are parallel. That's 2 sets. So a square has those characteristics. You probably already knew the first one. Well, the second one on here. That all the sides are equal. Also has 4 right angles and 2 sets of parallel sides. There's only one difference between a square and a rectangle. Let's talk about rectangles. I bet you already know rectangles too. Rectangles also have 4 right angles. I could fit squares in the corners of all these shapes, just like a square. Okay? They all have 2 sets of parallel sides. Okay? Parallel, parallel. All these do, just like a square. But a rectangle only has to have two sets of equal length sides. It can have more, but it has to be two sets. So on this rectangle, these two sides are the same. Oh my goodness, this is hard to do backwards. These two sides are the same. And these two sides are the same length. They're also parallel to each other. You'll notice here, I have a square. All squares are rectangles because they have four right angles, two sets of parallel sides, and two sets of equal length sides. We know a square actually has all four sides are equal, but that still counts. Let's look at those two things next to each other. This will make it very easy for you to compare. They both have the same top bullet point. Squares and rectangles both have four right angles. They both have two sets of parallel sides. A square has all four sides that are the same length. A rectangle has two sets of sides that are the same length. All squares are rectangles. Not all rectangles are squares. Okay? Next, we're going to go over two more types of quadrilaterals, and these you might not be as familiar with. I'm betting you've heard these names before, but you might not really know what makes these shapes. Okay? I'm going to do the trapezoid first because I think it's easier. Trapezoids have at least, that's the key part here, at least one set of parallel sides. That means it can be more. That means squares and rectangles have two sets of parallel sides. Squares and rectangles are also trapezoids. Okay? Because they have at least one set of parallel sides. Now, when we think of a trapezoid, we typically think of this shape here and this shape here, which is just this one flipped upside down. Okay, I always think of a trapezoid as looking like the Pizza Hut symbol. Okay, this reminds me of the Pizza Hut symbol. That's what a typical trapezoid looks like. But here I have a square. It's still a trapezoid because it has one set of parallel sides. This shape here, that's kind of crazy, has, there we go, these two sides are parallel. So they are all trapezoids. The typical trapezoid that we think of is the one that looks like this, though, or this. Okay? Those are the ones we typically think of if someone asks us to draw a trapezoid. Lastly, we have a rhombus. Rhombus is tricky because people always think of a rhombus being the same as a diamond. And in a way it kind of is, but not always. All the sides have to be equal. And it has to have two sets of parallel sides. You'll see here again, I have a square. All the sides of a square are equal, and a square has two sets of parallel sides. I also have this shape here, though. This is kind of like a square, and I took it and I pushed it over so it got tilted or slanted. All these sides are the same length, and the opposite sides are parallel. The only difference here between a rhombus and a square is that a square has four right angles. A square, I have to be able to fit the squares in the corners. A rhombus, it doesn't have to have right angles. Okay? Let's look at both of those again. So a rhombus is very similar to a square. It just doesn't have to have right angles. A trapezoid is any quadrilateral here that has one set of parallel sides. At least, that means it can have more. All All right. We have some shapes I'm going to show you. And you're going to be drawing these now, so you're going to need your paper or pencil. I'm going to show you one at a time. You're going to draw it, and then we're going to look at 4 word choices, and we're going to decide which ones match the shape. So, you're going to need your paper. We're going to start with one that's pretty easy for you to draw. Don't worry about the words yet. Just draw this shape. Draw this shape on your paper. Make it look just like mine. Okay, let's think. Is this shape a rectangle? I'm going to pull this up for us to see. Does it have 4 right angles? 2 sets of sides that are the same length? 2 sets of parallel sides? Yes, rectangle is correct for this, but could be one of these too, we're going to see. So rectangle, yes. Is this shape a rhombus? Are all the sides equal length? No, it is not a rhombus. Is this shape a square? Are all the sides equal lengths? Nope, it's not a square. Is this shape a trapezoid? Does it have at least 1 set of parallel sides? It is. This is also a trapezoid. These 2 sides are parallel, and these 2. This shape is a rectangle and a trapezoid. It is not a rhombus or a square. Good. We're going to try another one. I'm going to let you draw this shape. And now we're going to test it out and see if we can figure out what it is. Is it a rhombus? Are all the sides equal length? Now it's kind of hard to tell because I just drew this the best I could. I was trying to make them all the equal length though, so yes. And does it have 2 sets of sides that are parallel? It does. These 2 are parallel, and these 2 are parallel, and these 2 are parallel. It is a rhombus. Yes, rhombus would get a little check mark. The shape is a rhombus. Is it a quadrilateral? Does it have 4 sides and 4 angles? It does. This shape is also a quadrilateral. Is this shape a square? It has all sides of equal length, 2 sets of parallel sides. Does it have 4 right angles though? What, can I fit a square perfectly in all those corners? Nope, it is not a square. And that means it's also not a rectangle because it doesn't have 4 right angles. So this one is a rhombus. It is a quadrilateral. It is not a square or a rectangle. Okay? Next, we've got a new one for you to draw. It's kind of like the upside down Pizza Hut sign. Let you draw that. Okay. Is this a rectangle? Does it have 4 right angles? No, this is not a rectangle. Is it a rhombus? Are all the sides the same length? No, not at all. Is it a trapezoid? Do I have one set of sides that are parallel or more? Yes, the top and the bottom are parallel. This is a trapezoid, not a rectangle, not a rhombus. It is a trapezoid. Is it a quadrilateral? Does it have 4 sides and 4 angles? Yes. One more that we're going to try here. I'm not going to hold up my signs this time. I'm going to see if you can remember. So you're going to draw this. Mine's not perfect, but I think you can tell what I was trying to draw. You're going to see if you can figure out what this one is. If you need more time, go ahead and pause here until you're ready because we're going to go over it. Is the shape a quadrilateral? Does it have 4 sides and 4 angles? Yep, it is a quadrilateral. Is it a square? Does it have all sides that are the same length? 2 sets of parallel sides? 4 right angles? This is also a square. We learned all squares are rectangles because it has 4 right angles, 2 sets of parallel sides, and 2 sides of equal lengths. Okay, so it's also a rectangle. Is it a rhombus? This one I am going to hold up because this one's tricky. 2 sets of parallel sides that are all the same length. This is also a rhombus. This is a quadrilateral, a square, a rectangle, and a rhombus. If I had listed a trapezoid, it would also be a trapezoid. It has at least 1 set of parallel sides. Good. We have one more thing we're going to try because you're going to see something like this on your personal math trainer assignment. I'm going to hold up for you a couple different shapes, okay, and they're labeled A, B, C, D, E, and F. Okay. We're going to take a look at these shapes, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions about these shapes. You don't need to draw all these shapes because you're going to write the letters on your paper that answer the questions I'm going to ask you here in just a moment. So you don't need to draw them all. You just need to write the letters. So my first question for you is, which shapes here have 4 right angles? One of them is a little bit hard to tell because my drawing isn't so great, but there should be 2. You should have 2 quadrilaterals here. 2 letters that have 4 right angles. Write on your paper the letters of the quadrilaterals with 4 right angles. Which ones can I fit 4 squares in the corner? I know it's a little bit hard to tell, but the ones we wanted it to be are B and C. B is meant to just be a square that's turned up on its side. And C, a rectangle. B and C have 4 right angles. My next question is, which shapes, what letters, have 2 sets of parallel sides? I'll remind us again. Parallel. Which ones have 2 sets that are parallel? should have 3 this time. The sets that have 2 parallel sides, we have D has 2 sets of parallel sides, the top and the bottom and the sides. B and C. A only has 1 set of parallel sides. Okay, these are parallel. E has 1 set of parallel sides. F has no parallel sides. Next, write the letter of the polygons here, or the quadrilaterals, that have 0 right angles. Write the ones where I can't fit squares in any of the corners. There should be 3 letters that you're going to tell me have no right angles. The 3 shapes that have 0 right angles are D, E, and F. Okay, A has 2 right angles. Both of these bottom ones I could fit squares in. I'm supposed to be able to fit squares in these and squares here. D, E, and F have 0 right angles. Which shapes are quadrilaterals that have 4 sides and 4 angles? Which ones are quadrilaterals? All of them are quadrilaterals. You should have A, B, C, D, E, F. All of them are quadrilaterals. All right. That is the end of our lesson for today. Remember, you can always come back and look at these things again. I'm going to hold up the cards one more time. So, in case you need to come back and pause, quadrilateral, 4 sides, 4 angles. Parallel lines, never cross or touch, always the same distance apart, and they do not make angles. Squares, 4 right angles, all sides are equal, 2 sets of parallel sides. Rectangles, 4 right angles, 2 sets of parallel sides, but only 2 sets of equal length sides. So remember the difference here. All squares are rectangles because they have 4 equal sides, but that does count as 2 sets of equal sides. Not all rectangles are squares. And lastly, rhombus, all sides are equal length, 2 sets of parallel sides. Almost the same as a square, except a rhombus does not need 4 right angles. And lastly, trapezoid has at least 1 set of parallel sides, can be more. All right, you are now going to go to Personal Math Trainer, and you're going to complete lesson 12.5 online assignment. Remember, you can come back to this video if you need help. All right, bye friends.